Ever since I was a child, I had an intense and enduring desire to be a VR trooper. Though it was only a TV show, it showed me that what I saw in front of my eyes was only one possibility for what reality is. I've waited, and now virtual reality is here. I can finally become a VR trooper. There was supposed to be a funny bit at the end of the intro where I put the headset on and then bumped into the table, but we had to send the headset back, as you'll learn in a second. Yep, virtual reality is here. The consumer versions of the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive have launched, and they're actually in people's homes, or at least the people who pre-ordered early enough to get ahead of the shipping delays that both companies experienced early on. Our friends at MSI were kind enough to lend us their HTC Vive Pre since none of the full-time Tech Tips crew had actually tried it yet. Anthony and Julia tried it at CES, but they didn't bring us with them, so cry me a river. But we actually had to give it back, so here I am doing a video on the Vive without the actual Vive, but I managed to get B-roll before it went away, so we're good, guys. Don't worry about it. Now, the Vive Pre developer version is not the final consumer hardware, but actually in terms of specs, the Pre is identical to that final model with a 2160 by 1200 resolution display, 90 Hz refresh rate, 110 degree field of view, as well as the external camera that lets you overlay the real world on top of the virtual in case you need to interact with it for some ridiculous reason. HTC mostly just tweaked the aesthetics and the headband a bit for the consumer version. Most people with glasses should be able to fit theirs inside the headset, but I actually couldn't get mine in. That's what you get for having giant clubmasters, I guess. I wore contacts every time I went in. The controllers are also virtually identical, with a large clickable trackpad similar to the Steam controllers, with 2 surface buttons, 2 side grip buttons that functionally serve as the same button, and a trigger on the underside. Setting up the Vive was surprisingly simple thanks to the tracking station's ability to link wirelessly, so the only wire involved with the tracking stations is the power cord. Once you have everything connected, launch Steam VR and run through the very simple guided setup process during which you map out your available floor space. Steam VR will bring up a virtual transparent wall within the simulation whenever you get close to the edge of your playable space. This is called the chaperone system. Once setup's done, you can either launch a game from Steam on the desktop or put the headset on and open the Steam overlay from inside the Vive. And honestly, I haven't tried the consumer Oculus, and I'm sure they have a great interface, but this is something that illustrated for me the awesomeness of HTC's partnership with Valve specifically. This is truly VR for the consumer. No fiddling with special run times and whatnot. Put the headset on, bring up Steam, launch whatever you want. It's very simple, but kind of crazy when you consider how far VR has come in the last few years. So what did we do in the Matrix? Obviously we tried the Lab, Valve's suite of demos set in the Aperture Science of Portal fame, since it's kind of the best single experience for showcasing all the possibilities of VR. Everyone's favorite by far is the bow and arrow minigame. I also enjoyed the Zortex arcade game, but another one of those simple yet powerful moments is seeing the little robot dog that runs around the hub area and the real world scenes. It will interact with you and fetch any object that you throw. As strange as it may seem, that little dog thing was one of the biggest things that played a part in convincing me that I was actually there. We were lucky enough to get in touch with the super nice people at Futuretown, a game developer responsible for a number of VR games, a few of which were actually in Valve's This Is VR video, where they combined real-world footage with VR footage, which, by the way, was brilliant. It showcased the potential social aspects of VR rather than solely portraying it as a solitary escapism type thing, and it also, I feel like, illustrated in a good way exactly what it is like to be in VR, so that was cool. Futuretown was nice enough to give us keys for A10 VR, a platform shooter that has you fighting off waves of robots while dual-wielding guns, Jibo Man, another shooter with a similar mechanic but with a greater variety of weapons, shields, enemies, and the ability to teleport, and Cloudlands Mini Golf, which has some pretty mind-bending courses. All of those have free demos, so if you've got a Vive, give them a try at least, because they're pretty fun. We also tried out the demos for Irrational Exuberance, which served as our trippy otherworldly experience. You need one of those, and the Brookhaven experiment, which served as the scary zombie type experience. You also need one of those. Don't know if you knew that. Oh, and Budget Cuts. That's a stealth game where you have to teleport through a level taking out robots with throwing knives. Super fun. So, having tried all these experiences, does VR fulfill its promises? Is it the revolutionary, industry-shaking miracle that it was hyped up to be? I mean, after all, this is basically just playing video games with the monitor strapped to your face instead of looking at a larger one from a normal distance. Well, I can safely say, guys, it was pretty nuts. There were a number of times where I was pretty much convinced that I was in there. I mean, Yeah, you have the knowledge in the back of your mind that you're actually in a room looking like an idiot waving plastic toys around with a weird doohickey strapped to your face, but when you're blowing up robots and defending your castle and trying desperately not to get shot or eaten, it doesn't matter because you're so engaged with the simulation. Now don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. There were a few times that the system glitched out and lost tracking for a second, and when that does happen, it is very disorienting. But usually adjusting the tracking stations a bit and running the setup process again got rid of that problem. The screen is also high resolution enough if you're concentrated on what you're doing. You won't notice individual pixels that much, but you will definitely find them if you look for them. Having tried it and seeing other people try it, I have no doubt that VR, and especially the Vive with its freedom to walk around and track your hands accurately, is going to make a big impact in multiple industries, not just video games. We didn't get to try Google's Tilt Brush app, but creators of all kinds are going to have a field day with this. I got my wife and my other friend, both of who don't really play video games, to try it, and they were hooked. They didn't want to stop once they put on the headset, which I think really illustrates the power of this new medium. This first generation is expensive, and even a lot of people who pre-ordered are still waiting to get their units. But one thing is for sure, in a few years' time, the gaming and content creation scenes are going to look a whole lot different than they do now. And this is why. Well, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Are you planning on getting yourself an HTC Vive or Oculus Rift? Or are you gonna wait for the second-gen versions? Let us know in the comments below. You can click here to watch more videos. Click over here to watch more videos, follow us on social media over here, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this from NCIX. Now, I was going to say I'm gonna jump back in to VR, but we don't have the headset, as I've said, so I guess I'll go do some real work, or something stupid like that. Cheerio.